And I'm going to start recording now. So good. Everything looks pretty good. Okay, so welcome everybody to, I guess, this is kind of the second part of the projections um, series, I guess, or whatever this is. And we're going to talk about UDIMs, UDIMS, and Pref projections. So um, if you remember from last time, we talked about like inversing matrix transforms and stuff like that. Um, I'm just gonna trust whatever the setup is that I did a couple days ago, and I will, yeah, just go through the search. So here we have a shot of this woman who's, I don't know, she's like stretching her neck or something, and she's coming up. So that's gonna be our base, and we have some animated geo of that woman. And I don't know if you guys know, but before the animators get the uh, character, the character is just sitting in a T pose. And so you have like the T pose character, which is not moving. So that's the base. And of course, it's rigged, and then the animator takes it and they do the animations. They apply the animations, and that's what we get here with somebody like standing and moving around. Right, so that's kind of essential to know because similar to how we were looking at last time where the object got transformations, you can set the character back into a default pose as well in some ways. So it's essential to know that that's where it started. It started at origin space. She's standing at 0, 0, 0, and then we have moved her in some way. And usually we get this axis node that has a lot of different informations. Yeah, here. I don't want to touch it too much, but it's got all these joints and shapes and stuff. These are from the rig. So you can lock on, for example, to her hand or to her head, to her feet, etc., etc. So we could invert the transform of this woman moving by one of those axes. The difference between an object that's like a cube moving around or something and someone who's deforming and moving is that of course like no one transformation is going to stabilize her completely into a T pose because she's deforming and she's moving around, so you can't, it's not enough information to actually like put her back into the pose. So let's just recap a little bit what I have here. Stabilizing animated deforming geo. So this is what I'm talking about here. So I have the geo, similar to last time. I set some normals here. I'm applying the plate, so I just undistorted this plate here, and I'm doing a project UV, as discussed last time. That's the one that's going to allow us to move the character, move the geo, and it's still going to retain the projection because it's replacing the UVs. So here I have chosen a head axis, so probably like right in the base of her skull or something, whatever it is. And I'm using the matrix inverse here, and she's going to fly down to the origin. And like I was saying before, it's going to look real fun because she's basically going to be stuck on her head and pivoting around, which is it looks awesome. So she's doing a little dance here, and so you can imagine if I chose her hand or something, her hand would be like stuck on the origin. And while it looks really funny, it is really funny. What what you can do is then do what we were doing in the last video, which was make a custom camera. So say I wanted to paint something on her face, I'm just going to plug this in because I already did it. So it looks really funny, but got a little Joker inspiration there. So you can see it's literally stuck to her head because her head's sitting in the origin, and since we projected the plate on it, it still retains that texture. So then we're filming it with a static camera that's pointed at the origin where her head is. We did a little bit of paint there. And now we just apply the new material and then make sure that we use another UV project now coming from our custom projection camera. And what's cool about this, I don't know if I mentioned this last time, is so she's moving around, and one of the problems with the projections is that it goes through the front-facing geo and also goes through the back-facing geo, so you see kind of a lot of it. If I turn this part off, I'm just going to use the same head axis to reapply the transformations. Nothing special, I'm just using a basic transform geo that has the axis plugged in. So first stabilize it, then unstabilizing and rematch moving it. And you can see that my texture is stuck to her head. So if I film it now with the render camera, it's going to look a little ridiculous, but you see she has this. So I can unplug this now to save some time, and now I have this really creepy face that is moving around. Now, you see what I'm talking about here, which is that it's projecting through the face and it's going and hitting other geo. One cool trick you can do is, since the head is sitting at origin, we can like fake some stuff. So I can just put a card there, because the head, I only need to position the card once. The head is stationary, right? So her body's moving around, but I can just position the head in a way that it's a black constant with a white alpha. So I'm sort of using it as a holdout mask. But since we can just kind of merge the geo here, or even maybe use an axis to combine them in some way. But since all of this gets transformed, what you end up getting is like a card that follows with her head, because it's now retract to where the original position was. And so we can kind of use that to, you can see, I happened to pick a one frame that didn't work very well. But yeah, you have to make it kind of big because she tilts her head up quite a bit. You see a little bit over here. But I think if I just made this bigger, yeah, if you just make the card a lot bigger, it's going to be fine. So now I have, a rough painted face, I guess. So sort of a recap from last time. It applied more towards if you have an animated character. So this is one way that you could apply something in. And, this is just a rough paint, but it could be like a clone. It could be a clone over. It could be a bunch of different things, like a dirt texture or something. It could be anything, really. So let's talk about UVs and UDIMS. I have some clever images here that I did take from online. I hope everybody knows kind of what UVs are, but basically it's texture space, and if you unwrap a cube, it lays out flat. Same as if you peel an orange or something. So it's a 0 to 1 texture space in 3D space, and you have the wireframe of the geo, and you get to place it and make sure that the seams are all hidden and everything. That's sort of what we're talking about when we use a UV map here. So I don't know if you know, but UV map is just 0 to 1 in X, and then 0 to 1 in Y, and it creates this beautiful red and green ramps. But that's just describing texture space. Okay, so I think all of us know what UVs are. That's not confusing, but what are UDIMs? So the problem with UV space, I think it's right here. I'm giving away my secret. So the problem with UV space is that it's limited to one square, right? So if I have a 4K texture, then if I'm squeezing an entire character into that 4K texture, then obviously I'm losing quality if I'm shrinking everything down into that 4K texture. So a way around this that's very clever, and that was developed by, I think it was developed by Weta, but I'm not quite sure actually. But it is, what if instead of just one tile, that there's multiple tiles? So it's going to be using a series of images that are all fitted into a square, but the squares are going to be bigger than the original square. So it's going to be like the next square and the next square and the next square above that. So whereas this is fitting everything into one thing, this is sort of a way to fit individual items into the UV space. So it's maximizing, so there's a lot more 4K textures, and it's just picking which 4K texture to use instead of just using just one big map. So it's a way of saving file size and sanity, basically. So how can we figure out how many UDIMs this model has? So I'm just grabbing the Tpose model in this case, but it doesn't matter. You can grab the other one. So this great tool by Mark Joey Tang I use it all the time. It's really lifesaver. It's called UV Editor, and it's going to show you the wireframe preview of all of the UDIM space. So you can see here that the first one is just the face. I know it's quite small, but I'm sure I could change the texture size, but I will not. And then the rest of them are just different sections of the body of the woman. You can see that this part's the hand, for example. These are the feet, I'm sure. So it's kind of like front of the hand, back of the hand, left hand, right hand, that sort of stuff. And so let's see if I can do this. So I have this UV grid. You can kind of demonstrate here that this one UV grid, so this is just a square, 1K square, right? So this is fitting here in the first square. So that's the one that is the face, and you can see it is the face. In fact, I'll just apply material to this, and you can see that it will in fact go to her face. See? Boom. So how do I get it on the other ones? Like what are these other ones doing? So what's kind of clever is if I put the pivot at the very corner and I just pivot up like completely. So I just scaled it by 10 because it was a 1K square, and now it's this is a 10 by 10 grid, and that's what UDIMs are. So it goes from 1 to 10, and then it goes the next row is like 20, 30, 40, that kind of stuff. So if I apply this now, nothing will happen. So if I apply the transform, suddenly you can see, oh, she's fully textured. So this is just, I've just scaled it. So it's actually, it knows that the overscan pixels beyond the 1K square, it knows to use that because it's looking for all that in the UV space. Oh no. Yeah. So you can see she's actually fully, oh man, fully textured there. Very sensitive to this thing. Okay, cool. So, what was I gonna do here? So how, like what are the units for these? What are the, I can give you this image here. So this is kind of what it's doing. Somebody very clever a long time ago decided instead of just like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, what if we used sort of frame numbers and we called it 1001, and then 1001, 2, 3, 4, all the way to 1010, and I think it's this one here. Yeah, so there's some, I don't know, some clever math here. Not gonna bother with that too much. What is important is that you know how it's numbered. So basically, this could be an image sequence. So if you're a Photoshop artist or something, you could just make a sequence of images, and then the 3D application would know, oh, I should use like as many of these image sequences there are, and those are the images that are corresponding to that UDIM. And so the way that it goes from this bottom corner is 1001 all the way to 1010, and then it restarts right above 1001 at 1011 to 1020, then it restarts 1021 to 1030, and it goes all the way up until, basically I can display the text here. So it goes all the way up until 2000, or this part I'm not quite sure about, I'll be completely honest. It ended at 1099, and this was labeled 00, so it's either 0000 or it's 2000. I'm gonna guess that it's 2000 because it makes most sense. But what you can see here is that these are all frame numbers. So if this thing was reading an image sequence, you could tell it to to use it as an image sequence. But it's a little more clever than that. So imagine we still had this UV grid. Instead of doing this stupid, ridiculous scale of 10%, or sorry, 10 times, what we could do is there's a node called UV tile. And UV tile is going to tell us, hey, I have a texture. Where does that texture belong? What UV? And you could either use U and V. So similar to before, U goes along the X, so it goes 1 to 10, and V also goes 1 to 10, so V goes up, so you're going up the next row, next row, next row, next row. But I like using the frames. So if you enable the frames, Let's apply this material now. You can see that if I change the frame number up here, it's going to the different sections of the woman here. So it's going, oops, all over there. So that's her arms, her hands, etc. So you can choose exactly which UV tile that it's going to be, which is pretty cool. And just for demonstration, you could also do this with this. So V, I'm moving it up, so it's going up the rows, and U, I'm switching the columns. So both very useful, but yeah. So this is assigning our texture to a certain UDIM. So it's telling it go somewhere here, right? That's what it's doing. And then you, of course, you would want to assign it to the right one. But for example, let's take an example here. So 1015 looks like your foot. Let's find out if it's her foot. We just go 1015, and then we apply the material, and then we have a little faith, and look at that, it's her foot. So yeah, that's kind of just demonstration of what UDIMs are and how it works, how it's counting, which is pretty cool. So is someone very clever came up with that, and people use that now in 3D, and Nuke allows us to also use that. Okay, so next thing says Tpose UV project sticker. Okay, let's let me figure out what this is first. So right, okay, so got it. So if we have a character in Tpose, I don't know why this thing is so, yeah, it's good now. If we have a character in Tpose, we can just make a projection. So we can just set up a camera, and for anybody who doesn't know, you can just always make a camera like this. So you go to default, you go to create camera, and it makes a camera from that position that you're on. So that's just a quick, easy way to make a fresh camera. But you can, for example, what if we want to stick some sort of tattoo, badass tattoo on her, I don't know, neck or forehead or something. So I think in this case, we need to, let's see here, UDIM, what did I switch to? Right, okay. So we need to figure out which part of this she's on. So I think I just grabbed the UDIM of her neck. So I just figured out which UDIM that was, which you can assign right here. So it happened to be 1020. And so I'm using that. So if I switch this, I'm rendering out the UVs, not the projection camera. So if I switch this, it's going to switch completely the UDIM. So what I just did here is use a project 3D with that camera. I lined it up to be on her neck. I'm not sure why it's not displaying, but anyhow. Oh, it's because I'm not doing anything with it. Cool. Yeah, so I'm not sure why this is not displaying the texture, but it doesn't really matter. So I'm using the UV mode here, and we can see the wireframes. I can turn the wireframe off. It's just for preview. But you can see that I can stick a texture onto this the UVs. And then, of course, I did that on the Tpose geo. But once I have the texture in UV space, I can then also select the UV tile. So I want to make sure that this is the same UV tile that I did the projection on. And now I'm just assigning that texture with that UV tile here. So if I were to change this, then it would go away. You see, so it's important that you use the same UV tile. So you're telling it which of the texture spaces to use. And so then I could just apply a simple like projection onto her, and if I render that out, well, she's not moving, but oh, she's moving. Yeah, because I'm applying the texture onto the moving geo. So here's me applying like a simple tattoo decal on her neck, for example. So this is going from Tpose. You do a projection on the Tpose onto a certain texture space, then you use that texture space and apply it to the animated geo. And so a very kind of simple example, I suppose. But let's go a little bit more complicated. So here we have a projection. I'm projecting the plate onto the same neck piece, it looks like. It doesn't seem like it. Yeah. So here I'm projecting out the plate. So plate's been projected onto the moving geo, and I'm telling it to please render me out the UV tile of that little neck piece there. So we can do a bunch of things. We could draw like I think I just drew like a bunch of lines on there. So ooh, I lost my place there. So if we drew a bunch of lines, I did crop it because you see through her arm into the back of her arm, so this is just the front part. But now if I apply the geo, you can see I have some bit of texture moving, and I'll just show you without the crop. It goes to the other side. So let's play this. Yeah, oop, froze a little bit. That's okay. Yeah, so you could also clone over a spot. So let's say I have this piece of hair, and for whatever reason I want to remove this here. Like say I do that, maybe. I'm just gonna delete the animation. So let's just say that happened to work. I know that's kind of moving around. It's not gonna work entirely, but you could use a live footage of the plate with the clone over of the UV, and then you get sort of this rough patch here, which is live. So it's using the footage and then it's sliding something over the UVs. I know it's duplicating it now, but that's okay. So maybe this could be useful if you had a really nice head track and you were trying to remove tracking markers or something. I'm not sure, but it's an alternative to maybe smart vectors or something. And so if I can recap this one, projected the plate onto the moving geo, selected a UV tile, which was the neck, rendering out the UV tile into 2D space, doing something to that 2D space, either painting something on it or cloning it over, and then I'm just pumping the same UV space, so I'm making sure that I set the UV tile to be the same number as the one that I rendered out. And then I'm reapplying that onto the animated geo, and then rendering that with the render camera. And that's how we get this doubling here, if I go to a better frame. So let's move on now from the geometry and focus a little bit more on the position passes. So what I'm doing here, very simple. I'm just I have this render. It's kind of like a lighting utility render, I guess, and I'm just replacing the RGB with this, so it's retaining all the channels from the render, and I'm just using the color from the plate. So we have this nicely tracked geometry that's been rendered with all the utility passes, so then we can use it. So I'm going to unpremult all channels, and how do we view a point cloud? I think everybody's viewed a point cloud before, so it's not rocket science, but you go position to points, and here we're going to use the P position, which is the position world. Position world, if I get rid of this, is going to give us, let's see if I can get the camera in here. So I also brought the animated geo in here as a reference to, so it's showing you that she is indeed, its position world is going to be showing you the geometry in the place that it was rendered at. So at the render time, where was the geometry? So it's always going to be the animated geo. And as you probably already know, if you try projecting something using the P world, if you try to stick a texture onto something using the P world, that object is just moving through 3D space, so the projection doesn't stick. Now, what happens if we do the same thing, but instead of using position world, we use position reference or position object? So if you use position object, which maybe I should show you the difference. Not much to show there. I think not much is going on. So okay, so usually it's much more drastic. But if you use position reference, she is going to go back to Tpose. And it's kind of strange because she is clearly not in a position. Let's go to like a crazy frame. She's clearly not in the Tpose position, but it is going to put all of the points that it's seeing back stuck into Tpose. And so that's what we see here. And it's a little bit crazy to think about because it's like taking each point, each 2D point, and it's like sticking it exactly where it should be according to the position reference. So you can see all kinds of like weird stuff going on because probably on that frame you don't see much of her face, or you do, and it's just messed up. Oh, maybe because it's geo. Yeah, that's what it is. Or it's just I think it's just a little bit of viewer lag or something. Actually, if I yeah, it's a little freaking out. I think it doesn't like to do it too much, but it does work. So looks very strange. Okay, we have the geo here, and so this is to prove that that one is, I'm just setting them up next to each other, that one is going on the Tpose. I know that the interface is making it look really funny, but if I go to a frame, or maybe if I clear my cache, it'll not be stupid. Yeah, so one is following the animation of the character, and one is following the character where she was in origin. Now, in a bigger scene, I mean, she could be 1 kilometer away. Who knows? I mean, she could be anywhere in the scene, like that scene from Black Widow where they're flying through space. You know, Black Widow's on the origin, and then they send her like I don't know, 10,000 10,000 feet above the Earth or something like that when she's falling. So, anyways, what we have here is, so I'm just trying to find my place. So we have two problems. You cannot p-project on the position world because then it slides. But you cannot p-project on the position reference because if you try to use the render camera, she's no longer in that spot. She's back at the origin. And this would be much more drastic if she was in another place. So you're kind of stuck between these two things. So the solution is that you need a custom projection camera position for the object's 3D position at origin. So you need to invent a camera basically because of the way that it's distorting the points back into a Tpose cloud. You can't use the original camera. You need to make up a camera in order to do it. So let's take a look at doing that right now. So this is the poorly labeled section here, but we'll go with it. So I have the point cloud here. So the easiest way to do that, I think the probably most useful, is to just render out the point clouds. We can render out the point clouds, so we might as well. And I have a little note here that on this position of points, you want full point detail and basically the smallest point size possible without introducing holes. So if I get too small, nothing will happen. But if I increase the size of the output, so this is just a reformat set to a scale of 2. So if I resize this, oh, it's not going to work. Of course not. It'll work on this side. So you might introduce some holes here. You see this these little black holes there. So that's where I would want to increase the point size a bit to cover up those holes. So you want the most point detail, and then whatever size is working for your resolution. And obviously I'm giving away the trick here, but if you want more resolution, basically you can increase the size of the output. So instead of whatever it is, the plate size, you can do double the plate size, but then you're going to introduce some holes of the point size. You can see that the point size is, I guess, just a 2D representation. So if I increase the size, I also need to increase the point size here to make up for it. But yeah, it's just going to cover those holes. So if we render this out, let's get rid of this so it's not bugging out. So what I've just rendered out is a point cloud of position world, and on this side I'm rendering out a point cloud. I will turn off the extra resolution, but I'm rendering out the point cloud on the world position. So this is just a custom camera that I made. So another trick that you can do is, if you want it to look relatively close to your render camera, is you can go ahead and create the camera from what you're looking at, but then just copy over these projection settings, because it's just going to default to Nuke's projection settings. So if I use that clever, oh, I don't have a camera, where is it? I was going to use that clever go to top node stamp thing, but I'll just be lazy. So here we go. If I just copy these things like this, not really a great way to do it. If I just copy these first 3 values, now at least my camera looks somewhat like my render camera, and so they're kind of looking like each other, so I can kind of rotate over. But you can see that this is a completely different camera, and I have this rotation axis here, and you can control the rotating, and it looks pretty good. Like you wouldn't imagine that a point cloud, looks so detailed, but it's pretty detailed actually. There's some errors, obviously, like in our nose and stuff that's going on here, but for the most part, it's retaining a lot of detail from the point that I'm projecting it from the front and like rendering a side view of it. It's not looking too bad, I think. Whoa, yeah, it does not like that. Okay, so obviously have some interface problems if I'm doing some stuff, but yeah, this will render out just fine. And so, what do I have written here? Once the point cloud is locked to origin, you won't be able to use the render camera. Yeah, since things are deformed into place, you'll need to use a custom camera. And I'm just describing the create camera button and the resolution that I just showed you. So increasing the resolution for more detail, but then increasing point size. Now, there's a series of position and projection tools that we have here. A lot of them are found in the NST. Here is a bunch of them: position project, glue P, etc. Miko also has a really great one, position project, the TNT one, which I do use all the time. These are all sort of doing the same thing. Some of them are using blink, some of them have a bit more settings than other ones, but honestly, any one of them would do. Like, some of them you can link a camera, some of them require the camera to be plugged in. It's just whatever one fits your flavor, but these are some of the better ones that we have at the company here. So let's go through how can we use this point cloud to our advantage now. Usually we were just using it as a reference in order to place something, because then we're going to use that camera, similar to how we did before. We're going to use that camera to just place something or place a texture, whatever, but sometimes we need to clone over the plate, which we can still do with this method. So here we have the CG again on pre-multed. We're using the position to points there. So here I have a different position here, and I'm just isolating her head. So if I go to different frames, you'll see her head is now stuck into place, and I'm rendering the plate, basically point cloud of the plate, stuck into place using the position reference point cloud with a custom camera. Now, since the position reference point cloud is a representation of where she was at origin, it goes all the way back to the Tpose projection sticker. That's going to work in the same way, sort of. So let's take a look. So I have her head here, and I have that cool sticker, and I'm just going to position this. I'm going to, let's see, what frame did I do this on? One of these frames. So I'm just going to stick a tattoo right in the middle of her forehead and give her some bright red lips there. And here we have, again, the CG. So now I'm back to using CG, and we're going to be using position reference, not position, because position is going to slide. So using position reference now, and having positioned, or rather having textured this, I'm going to turn off the point cloud, and I'm going to, I'll just do it from scratch because it's not that hard. So what is this one? Position projection. I think it's this one here, the MJT Mark Joey Tang one, which is good. So I'm going to delete this. So this one requires me to link to a selected camera, and it does grab the camera's world axis, so it doesn't matter if you have something plugged into it, which is actually really nice. So I'm going to grab this camera and click link to selected. You can also bake it. I just lost my place. Here we go. You can also bake it. You can copy from selected camera, etc. I think linking it is probably just the best because then it's live. So you plug your CG into your render, which this is again the plate with the render passes, and then you're going to choose world position, but it's not world position. We're going to cheat, and we're going to use Pref in this case. And then you grab your texture, which is this, and you can see, I think you can output either just the wrapped texture or the texture with the plate, and you can see it's already starting to work. And if I play this, we're just limited by how good the rotation was basically, but so it's going to slide around a little bit. You can see that it worked. So we used the position reference. We positioned a camera. We aligned the texture here. So we line this up. If I use this, so I could make it wider, higher, inverted. Yeah, sure. So if I go back now and view this, you can even see that if I leave on this point cloud, it's actually lining up like pretty well. You see some like artifacting and stuff going on, but if I turn that off, you can see that my texture is now it's I'm not going to get the 2D handle there because it's too crazy of a transformation, but you can see if I go back and forth that it is updating and it is stuck now to her. So this is sort of how you do a position reference pass, and of course it's going to be a little bit heavier, but we could take the render. Alright, what's going on? Here we go. Doesn't want to load for me. We could take this and we could, for example, cut out one of her eyes and position it on her forehead, and now we're using the cloned eye to do the projection. So this is not just limited to a texture, but you could also clone over a bit of the, we're basically cloning over the point cloud and then using the point cloud as the texture that's cloned over. So you can see it's a little bit weird, it's a little bit buggy, it's got some holes in it and stuff, but I'm sure that you could use this in some way. This might just because of the geometry, or maybe this is a GUI cache of the point cloud that it's flickering like that. But even if you had to do it for one frame, for example, and stick a texture on it, it can be done. It looks a little bit strange, but it can be done. Could just be the point size. Make it bigger. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it could be some of these details there, but you can't get it to work. So that is one way of using the point cloud of doing it, and I think Michelangelo and I were basically messing around with like, how can you do this in texture space versus the point cloud if you wanted more high detail. And as far as I know, there's no way to take the material from one geometry and like make it go to another geometry. So what would be great is if you project the plate onto the animated geo, and if you just basically just transfer over all that like texture information onto the static Tpose. I don't think you can do that. So Nuke forces us to do some strange trickery here. So what am I even doing here? So I have the plate frame held on 1096 here, and I'm projecting it onto the animated geo. So let's get rid of some of this stuff. So here I'm just projecting the plate, and I'm rendering out the UVs. So in this case, I'm rendering out a static frame. So static frame, but I want all the UDIMs. So, and either a really clever thing you could do or a really stupid thing you could do is if you set this number, remember that this UDIM space goes by frame number. So if I just set this to frame, I think I set it equals frame, so on every frame it's just going to tell me what frame I'm on. So now remember, this is a static, like one frame that's projected onto the geo. Now I can just render out 36 frames or however many UDIMs there are, and if I go back here, please tell me this is going to work. I don't know, it's not working for some reason. Anyways, I got it to work. So this should render. Oh, it's because she was nailing down. That's right. Or it was grabbing different. So okay, here we go. So this is her face. So you can see it's rendering out all of the UDMs. Maybe some of them are just blank in this position. So these are all the different pieces of her, and then you can just render this out, and so this is, I think it's 36 frames. So you can see it's just cycling through all the UDIMs, and then you can be a total boss and break out each of these UDIMs and frame hold each one of them. I'm not sure why I did. Oh, I just did that to link it so that it's, yeah. Anyways, these are each of the UDIM spaces, so all of the frames. Now if I, what is this, merge material? If I merge material, all of these things, so it's basically breaking out all the UDIMs, merging them all together using a merge material, and then applying them to the Tpose. And you can see it's like freaking out here. But this is just, I think this is just a GUI interface thing, because if I now take a camera, this totally works. So if I do an axis here, and if I just rotate around her, say like this, yeah, so it's totally working. So alternative to point cloud, I suppose, I get maybe some slightly higher detail. Obviously, I'm missing her like eyes and stuff. That is one thing to be careful. Oh, you can even see the seams of the UDIMs here. It's actually kind of interesting. But it's one thing to be aware of is sometimes we have more than one geo. Let me just go up here and show you. I'll just copy this, or I'll do the Tpose one smaller. So when I bring this in, it's going to ask me to grab all of this stuff. So if I were to grab all of the clothing and the hair and stuff, the clothing might not be UV'd the same way, or it might be like crazy UV'd. So because maybe it's a sim or something like that. So sometimes UVs don't exist, and that causes errors and nuke. I don't even know if I can show you. Maybe if I go over to one of these examples and plug this in. So it's probably going to yell at me telling me that there's, yeah, it's missing UV channel from geometry. That's at the very top there. So what that means is that I have a piece of geometry in there that was never UV'd, and it doesn't have any type of UV space, texture space, and it's basically impossible to use. If you ever see this, number one, try to go to your scene graph and start turning stuff off. So in this case, if I just turn things off one by one, so it was the hair in this case. So the hair didn't have UVs, so it was screaming at me because I don't know what they did with the hair. Probably it's some effects geometry mask or something, or sculpt, maybe from ZBrush or something like that. So that's number one. But if your geo really doesn't have UVs, then you need to go back to your CG artist and be like, hey, why doesn't my geo have UVs? Because kind of know where to fix that. But that is one error that you might encounter with the geometry. So just make sure that you're only working with geo that has UVs and is properly, UV'd. So, anyways, I don't know if I'm going back to this thing, but yeah, you can use this. Put a decal sticker, I guess, right on her face, and here once again we're going back to our CG texture, and I think in this part I'm just using different projection tools to show you that you can use it with different ones. This one's called Reproject 3D by SpinFX. Pretty basic. You just plug in your Pref and normals, and here we go. You can see I just did something on her neck. I think I would have to, yeah, I should do this, something on her cheek. So you can see that it is projecting through her face and onto like whatever was also facing that camera on the other side. Now this one does have this cool option to project on front only. So if this was a cube or something, it would make more sense, but you can see that part of it is being cut off. Now the problem is that these parts here are probably still facing the camera, so they're still going to get the texture to be there. But what I did find out was on this position projection one from Mark Joey Tang, I think this was, yeah, it has a project Z range, So from the projection camera, it's going to tell you how far to project, so along the distance from the camera. And that's this. I just linked these two. I just grabbed it and linked it. So you can see this was set to whatever the camera was. It was like set to whatever, 1,000. But you can see if I go to a smaller number, let's say 9. So I'm not going to get anything. So if I keep going, you can see that I'm slowly revealing my texture, but then it stops after that. So you can see if I keep going, it's going to like basically slowly reveal in Z space from the camera we're going. So then we could basically set it up to only project a certain distance from the camera and on the front-facing geo. So here is the decal just stuck straight to her nose, I guess. And then we have this this one, which is pretty cool, which is a Blink script one. It's pretty cool, pretty fast. But I think it has slightly less options than that. There is front-facing, so you have back-facing, front-facing, so that's cool. And then this one has actually a similar option to clip to the projectors near and far. The projector referring to this camera. So here, if I type in, I think the number was like 11.6 or something. So here, if I change it on the camera, then it's going to respect the distance. So you can see it's revealing stuff. So it's pretty cool. It's Blink script. It's fast. It's nice. But yeah, they're all kind of doing the same thing. They're giving basically the exact same result. This one's not giving the same result for some reason. Maybe because of the camera that I'm using or something. Not sure. But anyhow, this is what it should look like. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So a lot of I definitely don't recommend doing this, by the way. I just wanted to see if it could be done. This all texture UDIM nonsense, because if you wanted the texture to be animated, what you would have to do is you'd have to render out a frame hold for each or a UDIM for each section playing the entire frame range. So if you had 100 frames, that would be 36 UDIMs playing each at 100 frames. Totally possible to do that, but seems like a little bit of overkill, but it is possible. So that is, I guess, where we're going to leave it. The script and everything was going to be available for you guys, and I am recording this, hopefully. Knock on wood, yes. And yeah, so any questions for this? Is any of this like really confusing? I know there's probably a different way to look at stuff than you might be used to. But some of this can come in handy if you're dealing with needing to clone something over or apply a certain texture or do something really fast using the Pref space and helping you see the Pref space with the point cloud or the Tpose geometry, etc., etc., etc. So, anybody have any questions about this? No. Okay, cool. So, I guess we'll just leave it there. And if anybody knows how to transfer one set of textures or one set of materials to another geo, that would be great, because I could imagine this example being a lot better if there was just a node like transfer material, and I would be able to basically just project onto the animated and then transfer material to the Tpose and then render the Tpose. That would make life much better. Maybe there's a way to do it. I just don't know how to do it. So that's the next step. Cool. Thank you, everybody. I know we ended a little bit short, but yeah.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.